Welcome back. Welcome to week 3 of Coaching the Life Coach. As we continue module 1, and this week we're really going to roll up our sleeves and getting into the grist of the mill, your own personal work. And your personal work really is incredibly important, and it really is also never ending. It used to be there was a time where coaches and practitioners, it was considered verboten to talk about our own personal work. It actually adds credibility. People want to know. As the age of authenticity arises, people want to know you're working on your own stuff. Now, you're not working with the same issues that they're working with, obviously, or at least not at the same level of subtlety. But of course, we are all, hopefully forever, infinitely, working on our stuff. Even Gautama the Buddha was still meditating, as the texts say, at the age of 80. When he died himself, he was still engaged in the practice of meditation, as self-observation, vipassana, until the day he passed. So with that, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Clearing out. And let's talk about negative emotions and what those are, because that's what we'll be clearing out. And, I put negative in quotes because a lot of people have some issues with negative emotions. And I like to say pretty straightforwardly that negative emotions are the ones that cause illness or dis-ease in the body. Anger, fear, guilt, shame, we all have our favorites. But let's talk about why to clear them out. First of all, why you should care. And then we'll talk about how to clear them out in a way that most people don't even think is possible, and is. So why clear them out? There's several reasons. First of all, they're currently robbing you of your creative energy. They're really your background processes taking up RAM or memory on your, quote, computer. What I mean by that is, if you ever had a conversation that wasn't completed or it didn't go the way you wanted it to, and it just sort of ran around in the back of your mind. You ran that over and over in your head, how you would do it differently, or how it should have gone, or how you'd wish it had gone, or maybe what you would do differently in the future if you're really, really good at that. Well, those are background processes that are robbing you of current creative energy. And that's happening all the time right now for unresolved events from your past. And you want to experience a tremendous increase in energy, creativity in general, with freedom, greater choice, so that you can respond rather than react in the moment. It is the clearing of your foundation. You'll be more spacious, more gracious with everyone in every context of your life. When I say clear the foundation, it's sort of like, before you remodel a house, you want to check the foundation for termites. Or before you build a house, you want to make sure it's built on solid ground. And I can't tell you how many practitioners have not had their own stuff handled. And that has been the reason why they haven't made enough money. Whether that's their own belief about themselves, or whether that's because they got angry, quite frankly, they simply lacked the credibility that the clients were seeking in that specific area. And sometimes the clients don't know. And sometimes they do, in fact. And sometimes it's simply a feeling, an atmosphere, a sense they have. And we don't want that. And really, if you're involved in the process of assisting others in handling their life, you should and will and should always be continuing to have your life in a process of evolution. So what are these negative emotions? What do we call negative emotions? What do we call them that? And negative is in quotes, again, because, gosh, they create problems. Every emotion has a chemical set that courses through your body. If you're interested in more reading around this, you want to read Candace Pert, who's a microbiologist. She published a book called The Molecules of Emotion. But for now, let's skip over that and get right to what I mean. and what we're interested in clearing, and which ones, and why, and what disproportionate means. So let's drop right into that. By disproportionate, I mean those negative emotions that you feel too quickly, too easily, too intensely, or for too long of a duration for your own taste. So too easily, too quickly, too intensely, or for too long of a duration for your own taste. What does that mean? Well, basically they get in the way, and you know what that means. It's not up to me to define what that is, but for you, which of those? Now, here are some of the favorite flavors that people have: anger, fear, guilt, shame, anxiety, and sadness. Those are sort of the favorite flavors. Anything else is often an extrapolation of that, or and if you want to see a very interesting, although it's not fully endorsing the way he goes about emotions, I do fully endorse his work. And again, as a side note, if you're interested in coaching people around relationships, you want to look at Dr. Marshall Rosenberg's work around relationships and nonviolent communication. And if you go to cnvc.org, in other words, or explained, the Center for Nonviolent Communication.org, so cnvc.org, he has a whole, or they have a whole, list there of what emotional words often are and what needs are underneath those. It's very interesting, too, because a lot of people, you ask them, how they feel about that. They say, well, I think blah, 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 and it's not an emotional word. Now, in the process that we're about to go through, we're looking for these base emotions: anger, fear, guilt, shame, sadness, and anxiety. So with that, how do we clear them out? So we're going to pause, and first of all, I want you to make a list of the ones that are your favorites, the ones that you feel too disproportionately, for too long of a duration, triggered too easily, triggered too frequently, triggered too intensely, for your own taste. So go ahead and pause the recording now, and then come back and we'll talk about the theory around how to clear them out, so that you can know, so that I can make myself obsolete for you. So pause the recording now and make a list of your favorite flavors that get in your way: anger, fear, guilt, shame, sadness, anxiety, or whatever else may be there for you. Pause the recording now and do that. So those are the emotions. So let's talk about how we clear them. And I'm indebted to Dr. Ted James for this process. If you're interested in more of his work, you can look him up easily using the Google. Dr. Ted James, timeline therapy. Of course, this will be my own version of that, including several other things, but if you want to learn the foundational principles of this, Dr. Ted James. So, how do we clear these out? And what I should stress is that I have spent the last, decade or more looking for the most efficient, effective processes, efficient and effective. And this is one of them, certainly top of my list. Timeline therapy, or something similar using timeline clearing, is very, very effective and also very efficient. And most of my clients report that the first process we do around any particular emotion, it reduces the intensity or the frequency or the duration by at least 70%. And that actually is what I consider the standard for success, is a 70% reduction. So let's talk about how we actually do that. So let's talk about timeline clearing. And first of all, everybody experiences time. We all experience time. We experience a past, a future, and a present, and we have an unconscious organization of time. And we'll get into more of that later. But really, the brief explanation of that is that simply, there's a future around you. And in fact, even now, you could probably just point to where, you just get a sense of where the future is around you. And as you notice that, just notice that there's also a sense of where the past is around you. And get a sense of that. Then if you like, go ahead and point to that around you. And then for some people, the present is in a certain location. It's either out of their body or within their body, moving through their body. But what the point is, if we connect all those dots, future all the way out to 100 years from now, past all the way back to your moment of conception or birth or whatever, there's a line indicated between all of those. So for our purposes, we're going to simply say that present, past, and future is linear. And we're going to go from there. And if you want more of that, it's of course in the first book that you've already been assigned for reading. There's timelines in there, but we're going to use it in a particular way. So first of all, what happens is when you are born or whatever, sometimes it happens in the womb, the chemical set, let's say the mother, experiences extreme, in this case, fear. And the chemical set of fear courses through her body and through the umbilicus and is imprinted on the fetus, you. So you might actually have experienced fear in the womb at the first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, or maybe you experienced it shortly after. Whatever the case may be, you experienced it at some point for the first time. When something occurred in your environment and you went, you sort of shrank, you contracted. Could have just been a loud bang, a loud noise, something in the corner of the room. It doesn't have to have been anything traumatic, but that doesn't matter because the nervous system at that time was too underdeveloped to actually handle whatever was going on, whatever life was throwing at you. And that's fine. And so to make sense of it, the nervous system created something, in this case we're calling fear. And then another event occurred, reinforcing that initial imprint. And so on, until we have what we call a gestalt of, in this case, fear. And then all that needs to occur is, in the present moment, if something happens, then you suddenly experience fear disproportionately. And so what we are going to do in this process is to take you back in time, and we're going to add resources that you would have needed then, or that would have had you not experience the fear. And then we're going to drop those down, and we're going to clear out all the subsequent events that reinforced that gestalt, clearing it out fully and completely. And then bring it back to the present moment and have you re-experience futures where you would have experienced fear, but in this case you're going to experience those resources instead. You'll be more resourceful. It really is that simple. So, as I said, most clients report a 70% reduction in the emotions after this first pass. So get ready and buckle up and enjoy the time travels. And when I end the video here, because if you're not quite ready for what we're about to do, and when I say ready, you're going to want to make sure that you're not driving shortly thereafter. You're going to want to make sure you're in a quiet environment, in a safe, comfortable chair, hopefully a headset on, and you're going to want to download the next video. But that is the theory and how we do it. And next up comes your experience of it. I'll see you shortly.